Okay, so last week made I guess it'd be a three-generation trip to Disney in Florida. So I'm just going to go over each of the parks in separate videos. So with this, I'm going to go over first, like what it was like traveling during this time. So pretty much it's wearing masks everywhere, which it's fine. Um, the nice thing is that Disney did a lot when it came to line cues or signs everywhere saying stand here. Most people kind of followed them a little bit. They did a very good job. If you weren't wearing a mask, a lot of times they did say, "Hey, the mask needs to cover your nose and your mouth." So they were more concerned about here, less of the nose, mouth, and covering down to your chin, which was fun. Sanitization stations everywhere, and they did the actual more of the thicker sanitizing gels, less of the like here's a straight rubbing alcohol coming on your hands. You can tell that it was pretty strong because on all of them, the metal underneath, you saw a lot of the paint was corroded off of them. Sometimes they just put a towel there just to kind of hold the excess. In lines where they had the ability to, they did put plexiglass that said, please do not touch. Um, Lines were incredibly long for certain rides. If you know the layout, so you've got Seven Dwarfs Mine Cart, which is in one section of the park. The line would make its way all the way to other sections of the park. When we were in Epcot, the line for Frozen stretched from Norway all the way through China. Certain areas were entirely shut off just to be spots for lines. Some of the restaurants were closed just to be line queues, which I thought was really intense. I mean, you're like, oh, this line's taking forever. But the lines always felt like they moved really smooth, and part of that is because when your party is 4 feet away from another party, as the train loads up, you now move 16 feet at a time, which made things flow pretty smoothly. TSA flying out there and flying back. We did bring passports and IDs. Like, yes, my daughter has a passport. They always say, if you don't mind, could you please remove your mask? We can verify your face. So wearing a mask throughout a plane ride, where all of the kind of have the same rule. If you're actively eating or drinking, actively, so it doesn't mean like, oh, I've got a bottle of water. No, it's mask down, take a drink, put the mask back up. Inconvenient, yes, but you know what? Get a lot of masks and you'll be fine. I do recommend though, if you are planning on doing lots of traveling like this, and get the behind the head straps that clip on to the mask. So when you go to a spot where you can actually you're eating more, you can just undo it from your face and just do your loops, have it fall down in front of you, and then you can kind of just have it off to the side so you're not putting it on the table. TSA was fine. There's just a lot of different things you have to do. When it comes to wearing masks, I went over when it came to wearing masks. I had a bunch of ones that were Disney inspired, so nice, soft ones with a spot inside for a pouch. Those didn't have the ear clips. I mean the nose clips. Sorry. So what I did with that is when I went and I put on the PM 2.5, I actually found little self-adhering nose clips. So it's a little straight piece of metal that I put on the top. So then as I had the filter in, I could use the filter to be the nose clip to help hold it in place a little bit. All that part was fine. I mean, you're probably, oh, it's inconvenient. Yes, they did set up relaxation stations where you could go in, sit down, and kind of just relax for a bit. So I will say, if you're planning on doing a sort of trip like this, I mean, we went from the middle of the United States to a corner of it. Just plan things out, think it through, know that you're going to be wearing a mask. I mean, if you don't want to wear a mask and going places, you're going into Disneyland. Yes, Florida, you are not required to wear a mask in most areas. But once you get into a Disney facility, it's like, no, wear a mask. The places where you're not required to wear a mask, relaxation stations, and the pools. So we did actually go to our resort's pool. Very nice pool. But pretty much the moment you walked past that gate, there were no masks. Now, what you're supposed to have the mask on, if you're not actively in the water. They didn't stress that too much because it's probably like, well, you can't really wear a mask in your water if it gets splashed on. If you didn't have a mask, most of the stations did have masks available, which was nice. So it's like, oh, you don't have a mask, you have two options. For a lot of times, it was, you're not wearing a mask, you can't get on the ride. Okay. To the point, it's like, you're not wearing a mask, you can't even get into the line to get onto a ride. Which is like, well, you're telling people to wear masks. Wear masks. They did get on people for doing the walking and drinking. Part of the reason why Disney started to enforce the active eating or drinking while stationary is because people would grab a bottle of water, pop that bottle of water open, and then walk around with their mask down. They're like, no, you can't. You actually need to have things shut down. You need to be fully stationary. Take your drink. If you're not taking your drink, close your bottle, put your mask back on. So, all that aspect, as long as you are entirely well aware of the fact that this is the rule you're going to abide by while you're there, you get lots of styles of masks. I mean, for most days, we normally pack at least one backup mask per person. And those masks were entirely done. You're going on a ride. You might lose a mask. The mask might fall off. Lots of things that could happen. So bring a spare. Bring hand sanitizer. If you don't like what is being provided by the park, bring your own. You can always got some aloe in it and use those. You've got a lot of options and a lot of leeway of things you can do. If you don't like wearing, the N95, the disposable mask, okay. Find one that feels better. They sell washable masks. Try some of those on. If you don't want to have a nose clip, find ones that don't have nose clips. I prefer ones that have pouches in them, just so that way then, as I'm traveling so much, I want to have an additional layer. Almost all of mine are 3 layers of fabric. But then I can put a 5-layer filter on the inside and have 8 layers. So from that aspect, just be well aware of the fact that Disney has more or less said that they are going to require masks at the end of 2021. 2022 is going to entirely depend on vaccination. Disney does not want an outbreak at their area. We were actually one day where it was at 35%, which was their max capacity at the time. And it seemed really packed. And there are spots where it's tight, and there are people on top of each other. Some of that also, of course, too, is when you've got line queues that stretch through several sections of the park, it makes it difficult in lots of areas. Most challenging spots, I'd probably say, in the Magic Kingdom, because other parks, wasn't that bad. For Hollywood Studios, Galaxy's Edge, and Toy Story are packed. Everything else is pretty wide open. Animal Kingdom, Pandora, that's about it. Epcot, we were there during the festival, so we got tight where the festival kiosks were. But for Magic Kingdom, it's pretty much Seven Dwarfs and Winnie the Pooh, because they're near each other. But the tightest one out of all was actually Peter Pan and Small World. Because those two, it's a small area normally, and then it goes right, where it opens up, it goes right into stroller parking. So you've got people who are getting strollers, getting kids out, getting that corralled, and it just got really, really, really tight in some spots. So just be well aware of that. If this is not something you want to do, then, Disney might be something you got to push off for a year. We were supposed to go June of last year. Didn't happen because of COVID. We ended up going, March of this year. Some things were better. Some things weren't what we had hoped and anticipated. Lots of restaurants closed. No direct character meet and greets. So you do what you can to try to make the best of the situation.